uplift you. We uplift each other, really. But first, before we do anything else, let's pray in. I know that God is all there is. I know that this universe is built of energy, and the energy is spirit. It is that sentient being that knows of itself, and it knows of itself in form. And we are those forms, and so is the outpicturing of the entire universe. Every planet, every star, every solar system, every galaxy is just another imagining of God, thinking itself into expression, thinking itself into some sort of physical manifestation. And I know that that's what we are. We are those thoughts that God is having. We are the experience that spirit is having in this 3 dimensions and in time. Knowing of itself as us, we know that behind the diversity of all life stands the one life, God, with all of its goodness, all of its qualities, all of its perfection. We know we are that. We are some undifferentiated expression of this one life, and it is God, and it is good, and so it is. So welcome back. I'm glad you're here today. You know, I called this Monday's Musings because I've just been thinking. I've just been thinking about thinking. Thinking about what we talked about yesterday, thinking about healing, thinking about forgiveness, thinking about all these big qualities, thinking about the faith that all these things really do for us in the physical world. And I found this quote from Ernest Holmes in Creative Mind. He said this: "The best way to arrive at the highest consciousness is to have a great faith in the willingness and the ability of life to do all for us by working through us. Therefore, through the door of our own thought, we enter into universal consciousness, into a complete realization of life and truth, of love and beauty. And as we sit in the silence of our own souls and listen, it will be the greatest thing we ever do. In the completeness, we are lost, yet we are found. This is what is meant that a human must lose his life in order to find it. We are lost to the human and found in the divine." And I love that quote. We're lost to the human and found in the divine. It's really about letting go of our smaller self and really realizing we're part of this whole life of God, this larger life, this dynamic life that contains all of the qualities we could ever, hope, want, and desire within us. It's already there. We already came equipped with it, I was thinking about something Reverend Kathy Ann Lewis said a while back. She was talking about forgiveness, and she was musing, and she said this: "I wonder why people tell how they are wronged or betrayed, right? Over and over and over again, even if the event was years ago." And then she said this idea came to her, that a grudge is a hurt feeling that gets covered up by fault finding instead of drained and cleaned out by forgiveness. The grudge continues to fester inside, showing no signs of toxic infection on the outside, and yet still lowering one's immunity to stress, to disappointment, and to disease. Finally, the grudge has caused so much internal damage that the diseased parts of life are amputated. Friendships, reputations, objectivity. What's sad is that the little forgiveness applied liberally to the hurt in the very beginning could have prevented this huge mess later on. And I was thinking about that because yesterday's talk was a talk about healing. Remember, we talked about it, about how spirit heals. I don't heal, you don't heal. but that spirit heals. And spirit heals by revealing the truth of what's underneath all along, what is there all along. And what is there all along are the qualities of God that we are. We're an individualization of spirit. We are an incarnation of spirit in form. So everything that spirit is found within us, you know, like the drop of ocean water in the ocean. Same thing. All the components are there. All of the elements of the ocean water are there in every drop. Same thing with us. All of the elements of spirit are there in every body, right? In every body, some undifferentiated form of the divine. So we know that that healing is the revealing of the truth of that it's already there, that we have covered up with our false beliefs, and we've covered up with our fears, and we've covered up with our doubts, and yes, we've covered up with our grudges. And in failing to let them go, we create more harm in ourselves than anything else. So what does spirit do? Spirit reveals the truth of us, that we are whole, perfect, and complete all along, but we must be willing, right? We must be willing to entertain that thought. We must be willing to entertain the greater idea of who we are. And we can't do that when we hang on to our little stories of grudges, when we hang on to our stories of betrayals, when we hang on to our stories of, you know, us against them, all of those kinds of false beliefs. They cover up the truth of who we are. And unless there is a little willingness on our part to release our story, to let it go, can we see the bigger truth, right? And you know, some people don't want to release their story. And I started thinking about that too. Some people do not want to release their story, and they will tell you over and over again how they were abused by a spouse, or they were abused by a parent, or they were betrayed by the government, or they were fired by their boss, or whatever it is, whatever the story is that makes them who they are loath to give it up. Because well, I was going to say they're stuck to it, but really it's stuck to them. Either way, there are some people that are just really, really stuck to their story. And who would they be without their story? I think that's part of the fear, isn't it? Who would I be without my story, right? That's my sense of identity. Who would they be without their story? Well, they'd be free. They'd be free without their story, that's for sure. They would be new without their story. Did you ever throw your story out and tell somebody a completely different story? It's fun, try it. Make one up for yourself. Tell a whole new story for a couple of days or a week. See what happens. It absolutely changes our behavior. It changes our consciousness. Because, you know, every time we tell that same old story, we glue it to ourselves, right? First with Elmer's, then with super glue, then with Gorilla Glue. I mean, whatever. We keep telling the same story. Tell it again, then we're using nails. We're nailing ourselves to it, right? Tell that story again. Well, now we're going to break out the welding torch. We're going to really stick ourselves to it. Each time we tell that story, we adhere to it, or it adheres to us more and more and more until we can hardly separate ourselves from it, until we don't know who we are without it, right? That's your identity. It becomes our identity. And then we begin to know each other by our stories too, don't we? You know what I'm talking about, right? You know, it's like, well, you know Jim, right? You know Jim in accounting? No, I don't think I do. You know, Jim with the knee. Oh, yeah. Now I know who you're talking about. Jim with the knee, of course. Because we become our stories, right? And we start knowing each other by the story. But the story is not the truth of us. So what if we drop the story? What if we stop telling that same sad old tune, you know? What if we stop talking about how wronged we were, how betrayed we were? What if we stopped using our stories as a reason why we're unhappy, or we're unloved, or we're unsuccessful, or whatever? You know, because the story has to have a reason for being. And usually the reason is, this is the reason I can't be whatever, fill in the blank, right? This is the reason I'm not happy. This is the reason I can't be successful. This is the reason I don't sleep at night, or whatever it is. Our story is the reason why we're not doing in the world what we claim we want to be doing, you know? I think that's one of the things we had to come to grips with this sheltering in place You know, we kept saying we're so busy, we're so busy, we're so busy, we can't, whatever. We can't sit down and write that book. We can't sit down and write that poetry. We can't sit down and compose that music because we're all so busy with life. We can't sit down and paint, you know, or stand up and paint, whatever, because we're all so busy with life. And then everything came to a screeching halt and we had to shelter in place. So now what's the excuse you're using for not writing the book, not writing the poetry, not painting the painting, not composing the music? Because clearly not having the time was really not it. So that's what the stories do for us. They give us excuses, right? They give us excuses for not living the life the Spirit knows that we can live. And so what if we just dropped the story? What if we just dropped the story? What would happen? What if we just trusted Spirit to do with us, to do for us, to do through us? What if we did that? How would that change our lives? You know, we would still be ourselves without that story. Like I said, we could create another story, but you don't want to stick to that one either. What if the story you created was, I'm an individualization of Spirit? I come complete with everything I need to live a happy, healthy, successful, self-actualized life. What if that were our new story? That we held nothing against anyone, right? That we saw each other as outpicturings of the divine life just as we are. So that everybody comes complete with the same stuff and we know it. We know it. What if that's our new story? That there is only one of us, that it's Spirit and form. How would that change our lives? How would that lead us to express more deeply, more fuller, happier, contented? Ernest Holmes said this in The Power of an Idea. The great identification, then, is to come to believe with absolute certainty that there is something in you that is divine. It is eternal. It is transcendent. It is eminent. Gradually chip away everything that would hide the sight of the integrity of your own soul. It is the only thing you have. It is the only thing you brought with you when you came here. It is the only thing you will take with you when you leave. How lovely and reassuring is that? We are one. We are one. It's time to drop the facade, right? It's time to drop the facade and know our oneness. Know our oneness with the divine and our oneness with each other. Let's pray out. I give great thanks for this time spent together. I know it is all God. I know it is all good, and I know each and every one of us as an individualization of that one life. And within each of us is the abundance and the beauty and the balance, the freedom, the joy and the love, the peace, the power, the order, the unity, the wholeness, the wisdom that is Spirit, flowing through us and as us right down to the subatomic particles of our body. We know that too is God. That is an expression of Spirit. That is the energy of Spirit that breathes our breath, beats our heart, digests our food, thinks our thoughts, and lives our life. So I know that when I run across another person, I see that. I see God behind those eyes. I know Spirit is alive and well and laughing and dancing and joking and being in every person everywhere. I know that all life is some part of the one life of Spirit. It is all God. It is all good. And so it is. Thank you for spending time with me today. It's so wonderful that we get to be together, apart together. From my heart to yours, Vision, we are one. There is no separation. I will see you tomorrow, Tuesday at 1 p.m. See you then. Bye-bye.